Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the ROS Media channel. I am here once again with my good friend Ian Clifford. And today we are going to be running through all of your questions from last Saturday's webinar. That's May the 2nd. We're not just discussing theory, we're really addressing, these real world obstacles and opportunities that you've shared with us. We've reviewed all of the questions that you gave us. And we've had questions from around the world on last Saturday's webinar, from the US, from Canada, the UK, New Zealand, Thailand, just to name a few. And if you've been watching any of our content recently, particularly yesterday, which was May the 5th, we've reached a definitive turning point, I feel, in this mission that we've been on to reclaim your abandoned signature credit. Following that coordinated investigation into the pirate faction that attempted to sabotage your process, my process, Ian's process, the IRS have officially reissued our ERO, Mr. WK, with his filing credentials. This was a really big announcement that we made yesterday. So they've restored his CAF license as of end of April 2026. This, to me, and I'm sure you would agree, and this is a 100% forensic vindication on the protocol. And today, we want to answer your questions category by category, because we've had questions regarding the recoupment process, as I'm sure we always do, just to ensure that you've all got a clear path moving forward. So really excited to get into this, Ian. I've broken it down into categories. The very first category is to do with properties, mortgages, and foreclosure emergencies as well. And the first question that we've got is, how do I use my signature to pay municipal property tax?
Well, I mean, you can't actually directly use it outside the conventional making what people call a payment, which is conventionally making a bank transaction happen, issuing a payment. In common parlance, common language, we all call it a payment. Well, can't actually pay anything, but I think everybody knows what I mean by making a payment. You can't directly use a signature to discharge a debt on the Monopoly board. What you can do is recoup the taxes that the investment banks are paying for the use of prior signature credit events. So bank payments, mortgages, credit cards, loans that have been created prior to this event can be recouped. There's a myth. It's quite a big myth, actually. I've written a research paper on it a couple of months ago, where people are believing that you can issue promissory notes, bills of exchange, endorse the back of bills, send them back to the to the sender, and say, well, here you go, discharge this debt with my promissory note, with my bill of exchange, or with my endorsement on the back. And a lot of people are talking about that as if that is a viable strategy. And of course, occasionally it appears to work, but the problem is it's not working for the reasons people think. No. The creditor in this scenario, they're not actually creditors, they're actually debtors. But in the scenario that they've issued a bill and they're expecting payment, so on the Monopoly board, using common parlance language, they don't accept bills of exchange or promissory notes or endorsement because that's not in their charter. They can't do anything with it. So every now and again, a bill looks like it's been paid, it's been discharged. And that is because the sender of the bill can't be bothered to argue anymore about the fact that they've received a bundle of papers and a promissory note or an endorsement, and they know that they're going to be flooded with other communications that come from the one who's trying to discharge this debt, and they often just give up. And then people say, oh, look, it worked for me, it worked. And issuing promissory notes, bills of exchange, endorsing the back of bills works. because it worked for me. And then you got people on the internet saying, look, it worked for me. This was my package. I sent it in and the bill went away. Well, it didn't go away. It just, they just wrote it off. And that's where the problem of people believing in this method, this methodology, which actually logically and technically will never work, because it's not how the system works at all.
No.
The only entity that you can discharge using an endorsement is the United States Treasury, and they actually put that in their code. So tax bills, for example, can be discharged by endorsement if you know how to do it. We actually do it. And that's the only lawful way of using a promissory note or a bill of exchange or an endorsement. In fact, it's an endorsement for the discharge of IRS tax bills, any tax bill, and it's 100% lawful. They actually quote everything that you need to know in the tax code, and because they are the bankruptcy trustee, and you are endorsing basically the bill is a debt, and you're endorsing it with your credit. And if you do it the way we do it, which is through a grant or trust, they have to accept the endorsement as a way of discharge. But that's the only scenario I know of that works with a promissory note.
Right. So to be clear, if you're thinking you can discharge your water bill or your electricity bill or your council tax bill with a bill of exchange or accepted for value, whatever it is being bandied around the internet, it clearly does not work. It's only specific to those US Treasury bills.
There's people out there who promote this, that like it's a legitimate way of discharging debt. And it's very misleading. And then when they get successes, they hold them up, and they put them out on YouTube and put them out on social media. Look, this process works, and that fuels more and more people to try and do it.
Yeah,
and it's basically I call it paper terrorism, because the bill doesn't get discharged, but all the paperwork that is fired in that follows the bill of exchange or the promissory note or the endorsement, the recipient of all that paperwork, it's like they're in a war of paper. They keep getting all these letters and emails coming in, and they really don't have the time for it. And it's probably not worth it, because the amount of money they have to spend on replying, maybe getting their lawyers to reply or getting highly paid people in their organization to reply, it's easier for them just to write the debt off. Normally these things are quite small. They're like small thousands. They're not, people aren't doing this to discharge their mortgage.
No, I was just going to say,
no way they're going to write that off. So
no, it's just an administrative call, isn't it? That's all it is. We've got to weigh up the cost of, like you said, lawyer fees, staff fees, postage, time taken to do that. And if they make the call that it's just not worth it, then that's maybe why these people are thinking it does work, when in reality it doesn't. So I'm glad you cleared that one up. Yeah,
it's kind of it's a myth that's been going around for a long time. And for a while, I wanted to believe it. And when I looked into it deeply, I completely disregarded it, because when you understand how the Monopoly Board works, it's that way. It's never going to work, because you're not discharging with nominees. You see, you're trying to discharge things with the gas company, with the electric company. They're not operating as nominees.
No.
And when you try and do it with a bank, the bank is never going to accept it, because their charter won't allow them to accept it as tender, as legal tender. They just won't take it. So
yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Next question, Ian, is, can this process free me from mortgage payments in countries like New Zealand?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the easiest way to look at this is, if you had today sitting in your trust bank account $5 million, just a round number, and you had a mortgage or a loan or a credit card, or maybe you've all three, and you wrote to the providers of the mortgage, loan and credit card and said, I want to redeem the mortgage, loan and credit card. I want to discharge these debts. How do I do that? They're going to send you a redemption package saying how you redeem the mortgage loan credit card. The trust sends the redemption amount, the mortgage is discharged, the loan is discharged, the credit card is discharged, gone. It's not, we're not doing magic tricks here. They receive fiat currency from the Asset Fortress Protocol Trust. And now that Asset Fortress has used a new signature credit event to discharge the mortgage loan and credit card. So now you can recoup that in the next tax filing cycle, which will be almost certainly the next year. So, it's actually a zero-sum game, literally. You can discharge the mortgage, loan and credit card. You have to wait, of course, for the first recoupment of signature credit tax rebates to come in. But once they come in, now you're in a position where you can just clear all your debts and taxes, and then know that you can recoup that discharge of tax and debts in the following year. So it really is a very peaceful way. I've done webinars on the peaceful way of solving all these debt problems, and that is the most peaceful way. Of course, some people can't wait for 6 to 9 months for their first recoupment to arrive, so they need to use another strategy, which I call the art of legal warfare.
Yep, I understand that. So pay and recoup, no more letters, no more payments, because the balance has been discharged. Okay, so here's a question. How long does this process take? My mortgage is due to expire or is fully due by July 2026. A lot of people in this situation, aren't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely comprehend that some people haven't got the luxury of time. They need to sort out their affairs immediately or very, very soon. So to solve that problem, what we're doing is we're building out an AI and avatar combination, which will enable the debtor in the context of the Monopoly Board. The birth certificate construct is a debtor, has a debt to a mortgage company, even though it's not really a debt. And you and I have done a lot of interviews and I've spent a lot of webinars on this subject. So, but on the Monopoly Board, if you're playing Monopoly in the conventional way, the mortgage company is going to get very aggressive if you don't pay them off at the end of the term. And that was a trap which people unfortunately walked into 20 to 30 years ago when interest-only mortgages became very popular because the cost of servicing them was very low, and people thought, well, I'll sort it out later, worry about that tomorrow. And well, tomorrow's come, and they haven't got the budget to discharge the mortgage. And some people can't refinance because they've no longer got the credentials to refinance, so they're stuck. And they could find that the mortgage provider actually pushes them into foreclosure, which is what the mortgage providers want, of course, because they make even more from the mortgage. They've already made a bundle up front, and throughout they're going to make even more by foreclosure in their game of racketeering that they play. So what the avatar and AI system will do is it will assist people to manage their own case. And just recently, I published a fairly technical report, I guess, but it is how our AI system can track the signature that created the mortgage all the way through the securities that were traded or now still are traded into the investment bank that is holding the mortgage as a security, into their tax payment on their 945 ledger. And that is, there's a 26-digit IRFM reference number that attaches to that signature credit that was created by the signature however many years ago the mortgage was created. And now the voiding of a mortgage is something that you can evidence that the mortgage provider and the indentured trustee who hold the security, because no mortgage providers hold the security. That's the signature that created the mortgage in the first place. They don't hold on to that. They sell it to the investment banks. The investment banks are paying tax as debtors to use the credit. And that's what the IRMF 26-digit code actually tells. And that's proof that neither the mortgage provider or the indentured trustee investment bank are creditors, which means that you can void the mortgage on the basis that the investment bank has been misreporting that they are a creditor. And they can't do that because they are governed by the Indentured Trustee Act of 1939. And it's pretty serious for them to lie and claim that they're a creditor when they're not. And you can prove they're not using the IRS's IRMF system, which goes into a securitization and what's called holder in due course report. And it proves that the grantor trust that we've set up to void the mortgage for the for the member Envoy, it proves that grantor trust is the holder in due course, the creditor for the mortgage, not the mortgage provider, not the investment bank indentured trustee. And then there's a whole process of being able to basically remove the mortgage charge on the grounds that the mortgage provider has no longer got the entitlement to retain the legal charge over the property, or the mortgage legal charge. That has to be removed. And of course, that is something which I think a lot of people are very interested in. How do you void your mortgage? And not do it by going to war with the mortgage provider. You're doing it above their head. You're doing it at the top of the ledger with the United States Treasury, where all the credit and debit ledgers are being balanced, all the taxes are being received. You're way above the mortgage provider. They're low down in the list, in the pecking order. It's the investment bank that is misreporting, and it's the United States Treasury that has to correct the record as soon as a 1099 OID filing is done by a grantor trust that is now the holder of the credit, the true creditor, or representing the true creditor as the nominee. It's a bit of a long answer, I know, but it's important.
It can be done. So, whoever that question came from, if you're watching, and yes, I get it, you probably feel like your back's against the wall right now. It's May now, and your mortgage expires or is due for full repayment by July of this year. But there are ways and means of fixing that and buying you some time.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. We will be issuing, a memorandum on this in our Telegram channel on when that AI and avatar is going to be ready. We're actually, it's not that we don't know how to do it. It's just building the avatar on the AI system, which, may take a few weeks to build. But I absolutely believe that our members, given the feedback we got, I think it will be very, very popular as a tool. And it takes a bit of time. You've got to dedicate some time to it. You can't just push a button and your mortgage disappears.
No.
You've got to issue paperwork. You've got to email things, post things. You've got to deal with it. But the avatar is going to show you what to do and how to do it. And the AI is going to produce all the documents that you need to serve. And whatever happens, you can ask the avatar, what's this has just happened. What do I do now? So it's just really like talking to me about your voiding your mortgage, and I'm guiding you through. But I'm an avatar. I'm not the real Ian. I'm the Ian twin, the avatar twin.
No, I think it's going to be incredibly powerful for members. I really do. And, if you want to learn more about that in between now and when the avatar is available, go to the ROS Media channel and watch the in-depth interview that Ian and I did on that very subject, where we talk about the smoking gun of voiding mortgages. That is on the platform for you to watch. Probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours we spent on that together, Ian, just really breaking everything down in that entire process. So well worth watching, guys. Okay. Next question. Here we go again. I have a foreclosure sale rescheduled for July the 2nd. How can this help me right now?
Well, actually, the mortgage foreclosure is another AI. It's an AI avatar. It's slightly different from the void mortgage
Yeah.
because, and we may even build them in together. You know, it depends on whether we can. There's slightly different processes, so it's probably going to end up as two avatar AI combinations. The first thing you do is you get you run the mortgage securitization and holder in due course report. Set up a trust, which we can do. When you start to use the avatar, we can set up a trust. File for 1099 OID, not just against the mortgage that you're trying to void or stop the foreclosure on, but all the other credit that you've put on the monopoly board from age 18,
Yeah.
all the bank payments, other mortgages, loans, credit cards, even tax deductions on your wages if you've ever been employed. All of that can be recouped. So that starts the ball off rolling. But the critical one is the securitization report. And once you've filed that into the mortgage foreclosure court, wherever they are, with the right paperwork to go with it, that really puts the cat amongst the pigeons, because you've just turned up with the smoking gun that says that your credit was used to create the mortgage. And not only are you saying it, you can prove it, because you'll have the evidence from the United States Treasury that proves it. And that really gives them a great deal of difficulty. So you should better stall it, what's called stay, until you get an actual decision. And you get a decision on it in New York, where you go up against the indentured trustee with the same evidence. So once you've got a decision in New York, in the New York court, that the mortgage credit, you provided it, and your trust is now the holder of it, and it's the creditor, and the banks are no longer creditors, and you've got that proof, that should eliminate the mortgage threat, the mortgage foreclosure threat. So that's how it works. It's another avatar AI combination.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's going to be popular. I don't think anybody else has got the technology. I don't think they've got the know-how. I've had a really good look around. Nobody's offering a void mortgage or a mortgage foreclosure package that I can see. You can buy securitization reports for many thousands, but then you've got to know what to do with them. And they don't track the RMF code, by the way, because I've had a look.
Okay.
They just tell you the mortgage is being securitized and this bank, investment bank's holding it, but they don't know what the bank's doing with that credit. They don't know in these securitization reports. By the way, you can pay between $5,000 and $10,000 for a mortgage securitization report, and it doesn't actually give you the ammunition that you need to close
it's incomplete anyway, by the sounds of it.
It gives you a lot, and they're quite helpful, but the smoking gun is the proof that neither the mortgage provider or the indentured trustee are the creditors to the mortgage.
Yeah.
Well, they rely on that, and if they can't prove that they're the creditors because they haven't got any proof that they are, and you have got proof that your grantor trust is, well, their argument disappears, doesn't it? They haven't got an argument anymore. It's gone.
No. Okay. Fantastic. So look out for that, guys. Look out for the announcement in the Telegram channel in terms of when the avatars are going to be available. And I'm sure that you'll find that really, really beneficial moving forwards. Obviously, the ultimate remedy to all of this is signature credit recoupment. That's the main flagship of what we're doing, but we get it. Some people don't have the luxury of time, and this will definitely help some of you. So the next section, Ian, is to do with that pirate faction and the filing status. So we've definitely had some people maybe listening to what's been going on. And the first question is, what is the current status of the pirates and the investigation?
Well, a really good question. And I am trying really hard to get Ecclesia Law was appointed as the attorney in fact for WK. And he's been on holiday, believe it or not, for a couple of weeks. And because he's been away, there's something he needs to do to provide the permission for the IRS to send over what they're doing on the investigation. When he gets back, which is actually today, We're hoping to get that. He has to sign some documents and send them in to the IRS. Then we should get an update on what's going on. But all I can tell you is that, from what I know, the pirates formed a group on a Telegram. I think it was a Telegram group, or a Signal group, one of the two. And there was about 40 of them in this group, all chiming away, talking a load of nonsense with a load of misinformation. And Amy Sanger was like the coordinator of the group, trying to convince all these people that they'd all made the right choice by filing the fraud identification reports, and that Ian's a criminal and they all did the right thing, and they don't have anything to worry about, basically. And not only that, but then they can carry on recouping their own signature credit using my method, and using WK's filing license, but not doing it exactly the way I have written in my technical research papers. They were doing it from the debtor entity. And actually what happened, which was quite extraordinary, right? One of them, who's one of the senior members of the pirate ship, had actually filed 1099 OID using her, it's actually Marilyn Prospero. I don't mind saying who she is. Marilyn Prospero, who's a good mate of Amy Sanger's. She'd actually filed using her social security number as the recipient of the recouped credit. And what did the IRS do? They rejected the recoupment. She appealed. Get this, right? This is how brazen these people are, right? She appealed it as if she was WK. She sent in an appeal as if she was the tax preparer with a license, arguing that the IRS had no right to cancel, and basically to cancel her recoupment, basically. And what did the IRS do? They sent it to their TIGA, T-I-G-A department, which is their fraud investigations department. And they wrote to WK as if he had made the complaint, and explained all the reasons why they couldn't fulfill what the complainer wanted, thinking it was WK, when of course it wasn't. And that's how we realized that the pirates had been using WK's license. I mean, you really can't make it up.
Can't make it up, can you? No.
It's identity theft. It's the theft of a license. It's a federal crime, because it's you're impersonating WK. You're using a federally granted license to file fraudulent tax returns, and then you are appealing them, pretending you are the licensed tax preparer. I mean, you just can't make that up. But that's exactly what happened.
Okay, so that's where we're at the moment. Keep your ears peeled. There'll be some more news, I'm sure, coming up once we get to uncover what's going on that side of things. If you haven't watched the announcement that Ian and I did yesterday, definitely encourage you to watch that, with reference to the restored license, and obviously what impact that has on the 600 million of confirmed tax transcripts. So go and watch that if you haven't done so already. So moving on to the next set of questions, Ian, as far as the situation with the pirate faction and what's been going on there, another question is, why were my 2023 OID filings completed, but not my 22, 24, or 25? That to me potentially sounds like a personal process question. I'm not sure. But in essence, maybe we could just give an overarching view of what's happened with the filings outside of the 600 million confirmed, because we filed for a lot more than that, didn't we? It was close to 2 billion, I believe. 600 million, we had confirmation. Then we had the sabotage. So that leaves the other sort of 2/3 that were not confirmed by the IRS. So what's happening with those?
Well, I don't know what's happened with this individual question. The person asking the question. I don't know the individual detail. All I do know is that our tax filing team are very diligent, and if there's a reason why they can't file, they would let the member know. And if you haven't heard anything about why they can't file because there's something missing in the package of documents or the evidences or whatever they need to make the filing work, then they would have filed, because there's no reason for them not to. Nope. That's their job, and nobody's gonna receive. We're not going to build our freedom community if we're not filing tax returns. So there's no reason for us not to do it. I don't know where a lot of people seem to think that we pick and choose what we do. We don't. We do everything that we're supposed to do and have agreed to do, but sometimes we can't do it because the members don't give us what we need to do it. And that's maybe the case here. Who knows? I don't know.
And that's exactly why I say on many of our other interviews that we move at the speed of the most prepared members. That's what we do. If you are not checking your platform, if you are not checking your communication hub, then there's not a lot that we can do about that. That falls on the member. So
what's going to happen soon, Andy? I think you already know this, but on the list, high on the list, is an avatar that you'll be able to ask about what is going on with my recoupments, what is going on with any of the protocols that you are engaged with and have enrolled into. And it will access the platform and it will tell you what is going on, whether you need to do something, whether we're doing something, or somebody else has got to do something, because there are some third parties involved. That I think is going to be very, very well used. I'm sure that a lot of people will use that avatar rather than go in the platform and search about and look in, even though we've tried to make it easy. Still, a lot of people don't go to the platform, and then they ask what's going on with their process. It's like, well, it's in your platform. We're telling you what's going on in there, which is the best we can do. Because even if we email everybody and tell them what's going on, sometimes the emails get put in spam. So they think that we're not communicating. We are. It's just that the email doesn't arrive in the inbox because it's redirected to, via some sort of spam filter in the recipient email account, not our email account, in the recipient's email account.
Yeah. So it's just due diligence. Check your platform, check your emails, check your spam folders as well. Not every email inbox is. Really important that you do that, and that you show some due diligence in the process itself. There's only so much that we can do, to be fair. So we've actually got, and this is the first time, so we're going to go with this, Ian. I think it would be good. We've got a question in the chat, which is relevant to what we're talking about here as well. So for those of you who are joining us on social media, great to have you with us. And we've got a question here when it comes to the process. And I'm just going to read this verbatim. It said, I've listened to Ian for years now, and I believe what he has been saying, and can't believe my luck to have stumbled across this fantastic message. Here's the question. Why did these people believe the pirates when they had access to Ian far more deeply than people like myself? It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, there's two reasons why it happened. The first reason was Amy Sanger was desperate for money, literally desperate. She had debt collectors threatening her life, I think, and she was deeply in debt, $600,000, not to a bank, but to loan sharks and family. So we're not just talking about a bank and you can go into court against them. She had very aggressive debt collectors coming after her. She'd actually buried, I learned all this later, much after the event, after the pirate sabotage event. She'd actually buried plant and machinery that she'd purchased with the credit that she'd taken from some banks. She actually buried the plant and machinery under the ground so that nobody could find it. That's how desperate Amy Sanger was. Now, when the recoupments from 2024, we filed for a pilot scheme in 2024. Amy Sanger's was one of the few that didn't actually come through on that early pilot scheme. So she thought she was going to get her recoupments in early 2025. It didn't happen. We then refiled for Amy and everybody else in early 2025.
Yeah.
And she started her sabotage actually started in January of 2025 because she set up secret trusts where she could drain the organization's reserves away. Well, not drain them. She could actually redirect them to these secret trusts in a classic fraud strategy, where it's like you create accounts and trusts that look like the real ones, but they're actually shadows and they are fake. But the banks have got all the credentials to use those trusts as if they are real. So I'm looking at one set of trusts which have got all the right credentials on them, and Amy's created another set which is exactly identical to the ones that I am expecting to see, and she's opened bank accounts for the trusts that she had created, not the ones that she should have created and did create for that I had control over. And then she picked her moment, because I think that she was desperate, literally desperate. I don't think she was sleeping. I think she was worried about people coming to her home and harming her because she hadn't paid the debts off and things like this. And around the same time, in a perfect storm that you often find in these things, the case against Ian Clifford Stamp, the birth certificate construct, the railroaded, entrapment by design case, there was a 12-month sentence handed down by Southwark Crown Court for the bullshit allegations that Ian Clifford Stamp provides claims management and debt counselling services, which they know I don't do, never have done, never will do them. And that gave Amy the perfect excuse to then convince all of the US trustees that she was the head of their, she was their head. They all looked up to Amy. She was the department head, that they could all distance themselves from me legitimately because it looked like I was going to go to jail. And then all of the recoupments, which actually I've got nothing to do with. The irony of the whole situation is that the trusts are independent. WK is an independent tax preparer. My involvement in this is the technical side. I bring the technical know-how. I bring the solutions. I don't actually do the tax filing at all. So whether I went to jail or not made no difference whatsoever to the members' recoupments. But Amy Sanger told all the US trustees that because Ian Clifford has a sentence hanging over his head for this bullshit entrapment by design, which has got no substance, and I've talked about that endlessly ever since. She managed to convince the trustees that they could distance themselves from me. There'd be no comeback on them, no comeback on Amy for stealing all the funds, and they could still get their recoupments because she now knew how to do it, working with Amy, working with Lisa Griffin, who'd learned everything from me, who'd already resigned and knew exactly how to do the process. And they could either use Amy's knowledge that she'd also got from me with others, or they could go to Lisa Griffin and get their recoupment. So they weren't going to lose anything, and they could distance themselves from me, which was complete and utterly ridiculous because I was no threat to anybody. Here I still am. I'm not in jail.
Nope.
There's nothing connected to the IRS filings of 1099 OID recoupments and the matter in the UK are completely different jurisdictions about completely different matters, and there's no substance to them anyway. So Amy Sanger managed to convince the trustees, and then of course what also happened was Dan Needle, who's very prominent tax expert allegedly in the UK, very big social media following, he's pumping out propaganda that Ian Clifford is a tax fraudster. And he said that multiple times on his blogs. And people have, respect him for some bizarre reason. He was a partner of one of the biggest law firms in the UK. A lot of people seem to believe what he says. He sounds quite credible when you listen to him. He's saying that I'm a tax fraudster. Amy Sanger's saying Ian's a criminal. The trustees are going, oh my God, we can't be involved in this. We have to get away from it. We're not going to lose anything by getting away from it, because Amy and Lisa are going to help us get our own recoupments using WK's license without his knowledge, but we don't care about that because we don't really understand what that means. And they all thought that they were going to walk away with no consequences whilst getting their own recoupments. And Amy Sanger, to this day, believes that she can steal all the reserve and get away with it.
I know.
I claim it's hers. And you really can't make this stuff up, but it's absolutely, that's what's been going on with it.
Well, I hope that answers your question, and thank you for that in the chat. If you've got any more questions, let me know. So let's move on. Next question is, again, timings, and maybe this is a good time to look at what's happening outside of the 600 million. When can we expect the 2022-2023 recoupments to finally be paid out? I suppose there's two parts to that. It's whether you're part of the 600 million and you've had a tax transcript, or whether you aren't, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. So I can't answer that precisely, but I can generically answer it in that if you had a wages and tax transcript in 2025, and if the IRS replaced the original trustee with MLITR Research as the successor trustee, if that happens, which is what we are now pushing for, and in fact, I've been involved in the documents to make that happen this morning. If that successor trustee is successful, moving your old trustee out and putting the new one in, then I would reasonably expect that we would then be able to file 1041s straight away, and that's the tax return. And then within 2 to 3 months of the 1041 being filed, there should be a receipt coming into the trust bank account. We've got to set the trust up with a bank account, because you obviously can't receive the recoupments unless there's a bank account for the trust. So that has to be done as well. But we're making very good progress in that area, and there is a platform that we can use for that. So I reasonably expect it to be, if the IRS grant the successor trustee, within 3 months from that point. Where we are right now is filing to see whether the IRS, that's filing document packages at Ogden IRS to see whether they will move the old trustee away from the grantor trust and insert MLITR Research as the successor trustee. If they do that, then we're home and dry. If they don't do that, it's because they're still investigating the fraudulent use of the identity fraud reports, which were against every single grantor trust.
Yes.
But it's my opinion that the IRS knows which trusts were genuinely set up, and that is the 99.99% of them, and there were a few fraudulent ones set up by the pirates, who claim who set them up with nefarious intentions. And those are the ones that the IRS will be focusing on, the ones that should never have been set up, the tax filings that were sent into the IRS using WK's tax filing license and electronic filing software as well. It's not just his license.
No.
Those ones, which I think the IRS will single out. In fact, the IRS asked WK to look at the entire universe of 3,000 trusts and pick out the ones that he didn't recognize. Which was done back in January time.
And I think, again, going back to our conversation yesterday, the fact that they have restored his CAF license would suggest, not saying this is absolutely 100% crystal clear, but certainly would strongly suggest that he is not an active part of this fraud investigation. He's helping with it, yes, but that to restore his license, why would they do that if he was under fraud investigation? That doesn't make any sense to me.
He's one of the victims of it. He's not the perpetrator. He's one of the victims of it. But if the IRS thought that there was anything funky about what he'd been doing, they certainly wouldn't reissue a license to him. There's no way, not in my opinion.
Okay. So final question under this section, Ian, is what is the message for those of us who are simply waiting for our process to move?
Well, the message is that basically shit happens sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And last year, a lot of shit hit the fan.
It did.
With these pirates that we had no control over, and what they did, out of the blue, which was, one of the most devastating things I've ever experienced in my 40 odd years of running ventures. To have $2 billion of recoupments, struck out and undermined through people that you trusted, and 600 million, which was confirmed. To have that and your reserves stolen at the same time in the same week, and then people leave in the same week that you were trusting and relying on, all in the same week. That's a pretty extreme event. Yeah,
it was.
And that's,
I remember it well.
Yeah,
I remember it well, and we don't really want to revisit it. Onwards and upwards. That's what I say.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is that although it's cost people, they've had to wait, and they're still waiting, and I completely get it. We're all waiting. I'm waiting. Andy's waiting. Everybody's waiting to get the result. But we have been able to improve the process since 2025 as a result of it. And it caused me to really double down on research to make sure that there was nothing at all going on with our method that could cause a problem. We've been able to set up MLITR research as the trustee. We've been able to refine how the banking works. A lot of people don't realize this. They think these things just magically happen. The structure that I've built is one of the most complex structures I've ever built, because there's lots of moving parts, there's lots of aspects of it, and nobody's ever done it before. And when you go and talk to banks about what we're doing, it's not the easiest conversation to have, is it? That you're recouping signature credit that their bank may not is paying tax on, and we're going to recoup that tax and then give it back to the bank within a bank account that's maybe in the same bank that we're actually recouping, not from them but their taxes. So they have to get their head around that, because the banks don't actually know. It's only the people at the very top of the pyramid actually know what's going on. The people in the banks are completely oblivious to how this system works. They have no clue whatsoever.
They think it works the way I thought it works, the way you thought it works, all those years ago before you even dug into this. So, if you want to learn more about that as well, guys, if you want to really see the true machine behind signature credit recoupment, front to back. So I'm talking about the monetary system and how that works, the signature credit recoupment side, as in the filing side, but also what Ian's been talking about, which is what we are working on right now, the banking side of things, the structure required for that, the type of trust structure that you need, where that needs to be in the world. We've chosen Wyoming for a very specific reason. There's so many different things to this. If you want to see that, I would highly encourage you to go to Ecclesia Law and look at the technical report that Ian has written on that. It's 13 pages long. I've read it, and it is incredibly in-depth. This is not an easy process. But like you said, Ian, there's always a silver lining to the problems that we've had, and that has been that you've really refined this process into something that is completely robust from front to back. And I absolutely have 100% confidence in how it works. I really do.
I think Edison, when he allegedly invented the light bulb, he had quite a few light bulbs that looked like they were going to work, and then they blew up after an hour of being turned on. So he had to keep on refining them until he got one that actually stayed on and didn't blow up. And that's pretty much what this is. It's like, you're doing something for the first time that no one's ever done before. You can't know all the answers until you try things out. And anybody who's ever invented anything will know that that's 100% how it works, right? You don't copy someone else because there's no one to copy. So you have to try things out. And I'm a little offended. I have to be very candid here, because when people keep asking me why haven't they got their results, and we're working our fingers to the bone to get them, and I've used all my skills and talent to create this life-changing process. And still people are criticizing, and still people are going, when am I going to get mine? Like, we're not doing anything. I really do find it quite offensive. Just have to say it the way I feel, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. It is. So, let's drop the entitlement and let's show some appreciation, is what I would say. Gratitude is an amazing thing. There's plenty that we can all be grateful for. And, if you hadn't even stumbled across this, if you hadn't been introduced to this in the first place, then you've got to consider what would you be looking forward to in the future?
Yeah,
What would your life be looking like?
Before people knew anything about signature credit recoupment, they were carrying on whatever they were doing, and they were obviously having issues. A lot of them are having problems, and I get it. It's not nice to have problems, but problems bring solutions generally if you look at it in the right way. And then they come across signature credit, and it didn't happen for them in 2025. And then suddenly it's all my fault. Their whole life is my fault. That all their problems have now become my fault.
I know.
But I'm the guy who invented the solution that's going to change people's lives, that some people say could win the Nobel Prize. But nobody says to me, or hardly anybody says to me, hey, Ian, we had all these problems before, but you've given us the light. You've given us the way forward. We understand that it hasn't worked for us yet, but we absolutely are confident it will. And we want to thank you for what you've done. Now, some people actually do say that, but the majority just keep looking at me as if I'm deliberately, causing them a problem, which I've got the complete opposite intention. I want to solve people's problems. That's what I'm here for. I don't want to cause people problems. That's not in my nature.
And how many times have we said it? We don't want to be talking about bank recoupment and mortgage foreclosures all day, every day, do we? We want to be talking about the Freedom Plan. We've just had a member who's in the chat, Ian, commenting on something very, very aligned with the Freedom Plan, who says, I'm in the process of building a vehicle, transportation, unique, already paid for the taxes and the paperwork in which the ownership of the vehicle has been filed in. It gets around 2,000 miles per tank of gasoline, top speed of around 165 miles an hour. I have pictures, I have proof, I have documentation. I might end up like that guy who invented the car that ran off water. Well, I hope you don't end up like that guy. We really don't want that. But this is the type of technology, the type of expertise, the type of resources that we do want to be talking about. We want to be talking about free energy. We want to be talking about, farm to table food and clean water, even cars that run on water, because we know that they do exist. There's such a lot that we want to get into, and it's the recoupment that's going to be the fuel for all of these things. So thank you for your comment there. Let's move on, Ian. We've got a couple more sections to go through as well. The next one being really just to do with historical recoupment going back to the age of 18. And the first question we've had here is, how does the protocol allow us to recoup the face value of all bank payments and loans since the age of 18?
Well, this is the sort of question I like answering, because this is a technical question, which I enjoy. So, the way that the Monopoly Board works is you make a signature, whether it's a bank payment, you're basically depositing signature credit energy onto the Monopoly Board, and that signature is valued at zero when it goes on the Monopoly Board. Whether it's used to create a mortgage, a loan, or a credit card, or whether it's used to for the bank to match it with a matching liability and make a bank payment, it's the same. Basically, it's the same process. And because the banks are operating as nominees for the true creditors being the living men and women who can't step on the Monopoly Board because they're real and have substance, and the Monopoly Board is artificial, the banks then bundle all these liabilities up, because everything on the Monopoly Board is a debt. So you put credit on the board, but it's converted to debt. It goes from positive to negative in the process. That is ex nihilo credit creation, as confirmed by Professor Richard Werner, as confirmed by the Bank of England. And then what they do with it is they sell it off because it has a very high future value. The signature credit energy is valued very highly on the Monopoly Board. And of course, then the investment banks can what's called hypothecate it. they can use it. What hypothecation means, they can use it as if it was theirs. So if I give Andy my pen and say, here you go, Andy, he's become my nominee.
Yeah.
And Andy can use it until there's no frigging ink left in it. And what can I do, because I didn't realize he was going to use it. Well, that's exactly what's happening with your signature credit energy. You're putting it on the board. The banks are using it. You don't know they're using it. And then when they get to a certain point, the security actually matures, and they still keep on benefiting from it even after it matures. And all the way through, they're paying taxes for the use of it, which makes them the debtor, because they're paying tax on the signature credit, which belongs to the creditor, which they're not, and they're paying tax as the debtor. It's quite extraordinary how it works. And of course, they don't want you to know that, because that's why when they make their tax payments, they invent these names of entities that would be difficult to triangulate. Whether the taxpayer name is actually the bank that is paying and using and hypothecating your signature credit. It's a deception. That's what my analysis is determined. It's like a lot of things on the Monopoly board. It's very clever the way they've done it, and very few people have ever figured it out. Those that have probably are recouping their signature credit without an issue. Most haven't figured it out, and probably will never figure it out, because they're not even looking, because there's no reason for them to look in this area. Because I've been looking into it, I've figured it all out.
It is a master deception. It really is. Next question, Ian. Is it true that the average recoupment value is circa $3 million per person?
Well, the answer is, I'm guessing that it's 3 million, because we haven't got enough data. From those people that we've had a look at, and there were two yesterday, one was 15 million and one was over 20, because some people have had a lot of mortgages. Some people have had, they've had a lot of businesses which have been using the signature to make the bank payments through the business accounts. I don't actually know if 3 million is the amount, but if you think about it, unless you are very, you've only just turned 18, there's a lot of economic activity that we've all put on the board. Even if we only had one job at a low salary or a low wage, didn't even get a mortgage or a credit card or loan, we probably put hundreds of thousands on the board. If we get to 40, 50 years of age, which a lot of our members are in that bracket, that age bracket, 40, 30, 40s, 50s, 60s. We've got some people over 60, but the average of our membership age is sort of mid to late 40s, I think. That's because people younger than that haven't had all the problems yet. People that are in their middle years are experiencing the problems, right? So that's why our membership is in that age bracket. And those people have, even if they had a low paid job for 25, 30 years, that's a lot of credit you've put on the board.
Still a lot. Yeah, exactly.
And then you add landlords in who've taken out 50 mortgages for their property portfolio, and add all those together, you can easily get to very, very high values. So I don't know what the average is. I'm guessing it's about 3 million. Mine would be significantly more than most in our membership, because of all the things I've done, and I'm older, of course. So I'm likely to have a very high value because of all the things I've done, and I'm older. Andy, I don't know whether you've done your calculations. Have you got any idea on?
I mean, to be fair with Ian, and this is just my personal view on this. We could go back to the age of 18. My wife and I could have gone back to the age of 18, but we haven't, and we haven't for a reason, because we don't need it. That's why we haven't done that. I've gone back a number of years. I ran a business back in the early 2000s as well, prior to the crash in 2008, and there was enough money moving through that business just in that one account to secure my family's future. So I only actually went back to around that time, around 2007, 2008. I didn't see any point in being greedy and going back further when there was no necessity to do so. So we've gone back just to that point. That equates to, broadly speaking, what you're saying here, around $3 million, probably about two to £2.5 million, there or thereabouts. For me and my family, we don't need any more than
No,
that. We really don't. We can buy a wonderful family home, get out of the rented accommodation that we're in. And the reason we don't need it is because when we've purchased that family home through our asset fortress, and we'll purchase it through the trust, we can recoup it back the following year. I mean, Jesus Christ, if you can't live off of, 2 million a year, then something's wrong, in my opinion. So what we want to do then is we want to be smart with that. Like you've said, we want to then, instead of just buying stupid stuff with it, we want to buy assets with that, buy gold, buy silver, get into the commodities and the things that have real money. And why would you not want to do that? Why would you not want to take money that has absolutely no substance and no value to it, but have the ability to buy things with substance and value? So that's what we want to do. But yeah, long-winded answer, I know. But to your question, I think that 3 million marker is pretty accurate, I would say, for most people in their 40s to 50s, that you had a business, or even if you didn't have a business, but you had a reasonably okay paid job. That's 38 years of my life on the Monopoly board, working from the age of 18 through to where I'm at now at 56. Wasn't the greatest paid jobs, early on in my life, but you kind of climb the corporate ladder and you get better and you get paid more as you go. So I've just gone back as far as we needed to, Ian, and that was enough for us, to be fair.
And I think it's a good point, Andy, because nobody needs, and I can speak from actual experience. I had millions flowing through my accounts in my heyday. You actually have you actually get more problems the more that flows through your accounts in some ways. You get a lot of people who want to be friends to you. I can assure you that's what will happen when people realise that you've suddenly your whole life has changed, and you've got you've got big cash flows coming in and what have you. You get a lot of false friends. I can tell you that.
I can imagine.
Who want you to help them with this, that, and the other. It can be a bit tiring. So all you really need, and it's a bit like the Rolling Stones said, you might not get what you want, but you get what you need. So do you want 20 million? Probably. But do you need it? No, you might only need 2 or 3 or 1 to have a very, very nice experience. And that's where I think we should really all be. I don't need 20 million to have a personal, I just carry on doing what I'm doing now. I'm not going to go out and party it up and things like that and buy yachts and planes and all those kind of things. I had all that before, so I'm not going to go and do all that again. I'm just going to carry on with what I'm doing. Can you just pause, mate?
Yeah, hang on a second. Well, I can't because it's a live stream, unfortunately. So, guys, you'll just have to bear with us for a second.
You could ad lib for a minute, Andy. There's a bit of a problem.
Not a problem. Well, I'm going to move to the chat because the chat's quite active, Ian. Sounds like the cats are at each other in Ian's in Ian's place. So again, we've got some comments coming in here, which is great, and I really appreciate the fact that you guys are engaging in the chat. This is really good to see. Something that we want to see more of. This is why we're also now live streaming on the social media platforms, because I know that some of you like to kind of tune in on there rather than watch this as a recording. So that's great. And, just going back to what I was saying earlier, I think the way that you want to be looking at this when it comes to signature credit recoupment is, what do you need? What do you really need versus being greedy over this? I could have gone back and my wife could have gone back to the age of 18 if we wanted to, and we're well within our rights to do that. But you've also got to consider that there's only so much tax that is placed on the 945 module, that there is a limit to the amount of taxes placed on there. And that if we're having to get into the realms of moving money from other modules to the 945 to accommodate huge recoupments that people probably don't really need, then I would rather just have what I know my family need to buy a family home and to secure our pathway moving forwards, and then leave enough on there for other people, people like you, people like our members, people like new members coming in. That's the way that I look at this. So I hope that that's helpful for you in terms of how signature credit recoupment works, because we also recognize that for many people who maybe were looking at just the last 3 years of bank payments, maybe those people, those members, are not in the best financial position right now. And the difficulty with that is that if they are potentially on benefits, or maybe in a very low income role as an employed person, that 3 years worth of bank payments probably isn't even enough for them to be able to buy themselves a decent property in today's age. So to have the ability to go back now to the age of 18 changes the game for everybody. This is why we've called it the Monopoly Game Changer, if you hadn't guessed. So I'm really excited about the rollout of signature credit recoupment, because for people who are on low incomes or low salaries, whatever you want to call it, and they're thinking about the last 3 years of bank statements that they could recoup. Maybe they were only earning 15, 20K a year. Some people may be earning less than that. So 3 years at 15,000, while a $45,000 or £45,000 windfall might be nice, it's not enough to buy a family home, is it? It's nowhere near enough. It's not enough to secure your financial future. So having that ability to go back to age 18 is huge for people. But really and truly, for those who are maybe in a better position financially, I would just encourage you to maybe adopt the attitude that we have, and just go far as, but go back as far as you only need to, and not necessarily to the age of 18. And just think about, what would be a life-changing amount for me and my family? What do we want to do with that? Knowing that you can recoup it every year going forwards anyway. This is not a one-time trip. This is an annual thing. So you've got to consider that as well moving forwards. But hey, Ian's back. So I'm going to stop talking. And what I'm going to do now, Ian, is I'm going to move into the next question, because I think we've kind of wrapped that one up on the 3 million marker. I was just saying to people either watching or people in the chat, that maybe for those who are less fortunate, maybe they're in a low income employed role, maybe they're on benefits, whatever it is, that the original going back 3 years, it's not enough, is it? It's not enough. If you're making 15, 20K a year, it's not enough to buy a family home. It's not enough to secure their future. But now they've got the ability to go back to the age of 18, which is great for those people. And I would encourage people who have maybe struggled for a long time to go back to age 18. But for people who are better off, people who are financially okay, people who have maybe had a good salaried position or had a business and there's been money moving through that, maybe think about adopting the attitude that my wife and I have, and just go back as far as you only need to, because you can recoup it every year moving forwards. That's kind of where I left that one.
Yeah.
So the next question is, what does it mean to have entered standing as a banker at age 18?
Well, the living man woman is never a banker. They're the agent for a banker. The banker is the birth certificate construct. It is the entity that is going to issue these promises to pay in the future, the negotiable instruments. As an artificial entity, as the same as all the banks are. They're all artificial entities. There's no substance to them. So it's not the living man woman that gets to 18 that becomes a banker. It's they become an agent for a banker. Because when you get to age 18, then you can lawfully be the agent for the banker. Prior to that, the birth certificate construct is a minor, known as a minor on the Monopoly board. Has to be looked after by its parents. Can't get mortgages, loans, credit cards, because it hasn't got the credentials as the agent yet, because it's not old enough. So the man woman is never the banker. It's the birth certificate construct that becomes the banker when they come of age, depending on which country they're in and what the system in that country is. But in most places, it's around 18 to 21. I don't know of anything after 21.
No.
And I don't know of any country before 18. I'm not saying there isn't one, but I don't know of one. So,
okay. Well, that wraps up the questions on recoupment. Let's move to the next one, which is really to do with the Envoy protocol and jurisdictional authority as well. What are the specific benefits of the Envoy protocol? I think there's been misunderstandings in terms of what the Envoy protocol is and what it is not. It is not diplomatic immunity. Let's get that out there straight away. You know, it reminds me of the old Mel Gibson film where the guy holds up his diplomatic card and says, "I have diplomatic immunity. You can't touch me. You can't do anything to me." So maybe you could just clarify what the benefits of it are, Ian, for the record.
yeah, I mean, we have done a whole interview on this, which is on the ROS Media channel, and there's also documents that explain it on Ecclesia Law Institute in the technical area under Envoy protocol. It's explained there, and I have published documents on the Telegram channel as well in the past. So there's quite a bit of information available, and when the avatar is available, which is very, very soon, you'll be able to ask the Ian Clifford avatar exactly this type of question, and it should give you the same answer or very similar to the answer I'm going to give you now. The problem with the agency at the moment is that the living man woman is an agent, whether they like it or whether they don't, and there's not much they can do to sever the agency because it is established from birth. It is the event of registering your mum and dad, registering the placenta that creates the decedent estate, like a trust. The living man woman is joined to it through DNA. Because the placenta was joined to the baby, to the mother. There is a whole DNA linkage there. You can't get rid of that.
No.
There's nothing you can do about that. It is what it is. When you get to age 18, then, or 21, depending on which country you're in, now the agent, the living man woman, is operating as the executor de son tort, meaning that the agent, the living man woman, is operating the player piece, which is the birth certificate construct, as if it were them. The agent is holding themselves out. It's called holding out in the law, holding themselves out as if they were the birth certificate construct. That is a fraud. It's an identity fraud, because you cannot be the birth certificate construct. You can represent it, you can operate as its agent, but you cannot be it because it's an artificial construct. And they want you to fall into the trap of saying that you are the birth certificate construct. They keep on asking you the question, on nearly all the official forms, paying taxes, voting, all of these things they get you to do, getting a driving license, a passport, all of these things, they want you to hold yourself out as if you were the birth certificate construct, the citizen, the person. And you simply aren't. It's as simple as that. You're just not. But they don't correct you and say, hey, actually, you're incorrect. It's not you. They want it to be you. They want you to say it's you, that you are the birth certificate construct, because that takes away all your rights. You're now operating the agent. The principal is the birth certificate construct on the monopoly board, going round and round the board, and everything it's doing on the board is he's doing it under an identity fraud. So they tricked you into taking away all of your rights, because now the living man woman has no rights, because fraud eviscerates everything that the birth certificate construct does. They're not going to tell you about this because they don't want you to have rights.
No.
They want you to be a slave. So as a slave, slaves don't have rights. Only the controllers have the rights to do what they want to do. So the answer to the question is that when you file a declaration, as two things. One is the correction of the agency. It's not removing the agency, it's correcting the agency. That
Yeah.
you are operating as the general executor, or occupying the office. The living man, woman is occupying the office of the general executor over the birth certificate construct. So what you're now saying, you're making a declaration that you're no longer operating as an executor de son tort, which is an executor of all the wrongs. That's what it means, de son tort, all the wrongs. You are now operating as the occupant of the office of the general executor lawfully, and you will use the birth certificate construct, and you will make declarations, and you ought to be putting general executor on paperwork for the for the estate, because that's who you are. You are the agent, or you can just put agent underneath, agent for, because that's exactly who you are. You are the agent for the birth certificate construct. You're not the birth certificate construct. You've declared that you've cleaned it up. You've cleaned the record up. It's clausula rebus sic stantibus. That is a declaration of basically rescinding all of the falsehood from the past. Now you're saying you didn't know, it's genuine. You didn't realise that you've been operating as an executor de son tort. You no longer are going to operate as an executor de son tort. You're going to operate as the occupant of the office of the general executor of the decedent estate, which is your right to do. You're also declaring that you are alive, because in the system they presume, because you've never declared that you are alive, that you're dead and you're lost across the seas. And they actually say that in the Sesquivet V Act.
Dead lost at sea, that's right.
Yeah, 1606, 1707. They say in there that you will be presumed dead unless declared alive. Well, you've never declared that you're alive, probably. Some people might have done, but most probably never have. So not only are you presumed dead, but you are presumed operating as the agent, as an executor de son tort. So the Envoy protocol cleans all that up, and you are declaring that you are an envoy of a ministry. And as an envoy of a ministry being the Republic of Old Souls, you are now elevating yourself up to the envoy status, because ministers, of which you become, have an elevated standing in the law. So you're cleaning up the record. You are occupying the office of the general executor, and you're removing the executor de son tort. You are declaring you're alive, and you are operating as an envoy. That is, in a nutshell, which we did an hour and a half on it, I think, a few months ago. That's what's going on, and that's why you should do it. And also, it makes a difference when you come to tax filings for the signature credit recoupment, because at the moment, and it probably would never stop people, but to be very, very careful and cautious, you don't want to be an executor de son tort as a beneficiary to the grantor trusts that are filing tax returns, because the executor de son tort is operating in fraud. You don't want to be operating in fraud, receiving the benefits of your grantor trust that's receiving millions of dollars in tax recoupments as a presumed fraudster.
No.
You don't want that.
So this is why.
It's why it's part of the package, yeah?
Exactly. Why the Envoy protocol, the asset fortress, and the signature credit recoupment is all one package that we call the Monopoly game changer. So it's a cleaning up of your standing so that you can receive those funds without any potential issues further down the line. It's protecting those funds within your asset fortress. And then obviously we've explained what the signature credit recoupment is anyway. So perfect. Right. Next question. Again, people not really understanding how the Envoy protocol works. Can I drive a vehicle or demand a diplomatic passport from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs after the 3 notices have been sent out?
No, I wish you could. They're not going to. They're not going to invite you to afternoon tea and roll the red carpet out and give you a diplomatic passport.
No.
They don't want you to have any rights. It's the bottom line. You don't get a diplomatic passport. I've watched and read many people talking about 5-star passports in the United States, and you can get you can file paperwork in the United States and then get a diplomatic passport issued. I did deep research into it, and I actually tried it out to see if I could get it to work, and it didn't work. So on many levels it should work, but I was unable to get it to work. Maybe, possibly in the United States, you could get it to work. It's pretty difficult. Some people claim they've done it. I don't see any evidence of anybody actually doing it and succeeding. I'm not saying that nobody ever has, but I think it's unlikely for anybody outside the United States who doesn't have a citizenship of the United States. Because it's only the United States that offers diplomatic passports to envoys. And even if you're in the United States, I think it's still very, very difficult to do it. People say you can do it. There are websites promoting it. I did a lot of research into it. On many levels, it looks like it's possible until you try and do it. And then what happens is that the Secretary of State, which is who you have to file the paperwork with, just don't reply because they don't want to give it to you.
No. Okay. Next question. How does this work? Does this work the same in the USA as it does in the UK or other regions?
Nearly. Yeah, the nearly is because if you are the agent for a birth certificate construct, citizen of the United States, then you can't have an asset fortress with a 98 series grant or trust without a lot of maneuvering, financial engineering. So you create a ministry instead of a 98 series grant or trust. You get a 508c 1A ministry, and that you use that as your private treasury. Then everything else is identical. It's just where you receive the recoupments in the private treasury. The grantor trust that is going to file the 1099 OID, that stays exactly the same for everybody. But it's the next grantor trust or private treasury for the United States citizens needs to be different. And you're actually going to do an interview on this, aren't we, soon? So we're going to be talking all about it, about why it's slightly different. But you end up in the same place, and it doesn't cost any more. It's the donation for it is the same, and everything else about the process is the same. It's just what entity do you use as your private treasury? Is it a 98 series grant or trust, or is it a ministry? Well, it's better to be a ministry if you're the agent for the birth certificate construct in the United States.
Yep. Okay. Next question, Ian, is how can we be sure a bank is actually incorporated before we start the process?
When you say incorporated, I don't understand what I mean.
No, I don't
incorporate
either.
Yeah. Is that do you think the question is whether the bank is a real bank, or is the question, are they part of the IMF system?
Possibly, yeah. I think because we have mentioned previously that this is a worldwide monetary system, but that there are some exceptions, like you said before. I think North Korea is one of them that's an exception. So depending where this person lives and whether they are concerned that their bank maybe doesn't qualify for the signature recoupment process, that might be what it's about. Difficult to tell, to be fair.
Yeah, ultimately there will be a clearing bank somewhere. If you're making bank payments, no matter which entity you're making them from, or you appears to be making them from, there will be a clearing bank somewhere. Even if the bank is what they call a fintech, or it's not it hasn't got a banking license itself. It's like an agent for a bank, but it's got its own brand and it looks like a bank, and they keep saying it's a bank, but in reality it isn't, because it doesn't have a clearing license. There will be a clearing bank somewhere in your bank payments. Otherwise, the bank payments aren't bank payments. There can't be bank payments unless there's a clearing bank to take in your signature. So it might go through a few layers, and you might be a few names involved at the beginning that claim that they're banks. What they're doing is they're doing banking, but they're not banks.
Yeah. So your Revoluts and your Monies of this world and your Monzos of this world, they're typically the type of setups.
Starling, Monzo, there's a load of them. There's a whole range of them. They hold themselves out as banks, but they're doing banking. They're not actually clearing banks. They haven't got a license to clear, which is the ex nihilo credit stuff. They don't have that license. They don't probably stand much chance of getting that license either, because that isn't given out by the cabal very, very freely.
No. All right. Next question on this, well, final question on this subject on the Envoy protocol and jurisdictional authority is, I already have a 98 series trust. How do I use it to stop a judgment or foreclosure?
Well, you can't use it for that. It's not designed for that. You can use a 98 series grant or trust to receive recoupment if you know what you're doing, and if you're able to file in the right way and all the things that I put in my technical papers. You could use it for that if it's been set up in the right way, but you can't use it itself to stop a foreclosure. To use it, as part of an entity that files 1099 OID against the securities which the investment bank's holding, which originated from the signature that created the mortgage. You could use it for that. And you won't probably be able to recoup very easily, because you'll need a bank account connected to it, which you have to get, and you'll need a license to file, because you can't file. You can file paper 1099 OID, but not for a trust. You can file paper for the taxpayer, the birth certificate construct, but you can't file electronically and get through the algorithm 810, the IRS algorithm 810, unless you're doing it through a grant or trust with an ERO, with a tax license, with a bank that's connected to that grant or trust to receive the funds, which is the TRIAS 310, receipt of the recoupment funds, ACH Fedwire. You've got to put all those things in place if you're going to recoup. But in theory, you could file 1099 OID from the grant or trust. You're never going to get the recoupment, but you could make the grant or trust the holder in due course, and that takes away the creditor status. But then you're going to need a securitization report to prove it. The courts won't believe you just by saying I filed 1099 OID. They're going to want to see the evidence, the proof that your grant or trust is the holder in due course. So unless it's happening within the next couple of months, wait for the avatar and the AI to come out, because it will do all that for you.
Definitely. Okay, final section, Ian, and this is really to do with just next steps and sort of transitions from here, kind of linking back to when we were talking about the sabotage and what's going on with the current trusts. But the questions we've got here is, once the trust paperwork is signed, what happens next?
I'm going to have to assume that the trust paperwork is the tax filing grant or trust. I'm going to have to assume that. Because you become a grantor for the 1099 filing trust, the first grant or trust that is established. What's going to happen? It's as we've been through many times before. It's you have to get your estimates together of what credit you've put on the monopoly board from 18, if that's what you're doing. You have to have a meeting with one of our consultants and go through we have a methodology to establish the bank names, the amounts, and all that stuff. That all has to be lodged in our system. You don't have to go and get all your bank statements or go and find all your mortgage statements. You just need to know the names of the banks and the amounts and roughly the years. between this year and that year, I issued this much in bank payments. In this year, I took out a mortgage for this face value. That's what the consultation meeting is going to establish. That will tell you what the recoupment amount will be. And then the rest of it is all facilitated. You don't have to do anything after that, after you sign the documents. The whole process from A through Z. And if you look around my head, all of this stuff is all going to be done for you by our team. So,
Now, if that question was maybe not about the filing trust, what if it was a question relating to the Asset Fortress Trust, which I know is still a 98, but
yeah, if it's an Asset Fortress Trust, then once you've got a paperwork, the indenture signed up for, you are the grantor and trustee. When I say you are the agent for the grantor and the trustee. The living man woman is the agent for the birth certificate construct that signs up as a grantor of the 98 series trust, signs up as the trustee. The living man woman is the beneficiary of that trust. We will then assist you in getting a bank account for the trust. And then when the recoupments come in, there will be a transfer from the tax filing grantor trust to the Asset Fortress grantor trust. And then it's up to you. You do whatever you want to do with it. It's your trust. You're the grantor trustee. You can spend what you want, where you want, because you'll have a bank account and a bank card. And then you should be able to go through those cycles that we've been talking about, where every year you've got a new recoupment coming into the Asset Fortress, you spend out, you recoup back. It just goes in cycles.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. And the final question: how do I transition my existing trust to the MLITR Research Clean Slate? Well, we're doing that for you. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the answer. It's the member doesn't have to do anything. They're already the grantor of the trust. They appointed a trustee. There is a successor trustee being substituting the original. In the original documents, the grantors agreed to have a successor trustee. Now we're invoking that. So you don't have to do anything. It's all done. Exactly what you said, Andy. So
yeah. So that's all your questions, guys. We've had questions in the comments, which have been wonderful to see. We've answered every single question that was given to us at point of registration as well, and categorized them. So, hopefully those concerns that you've had, those questions that you've had, I hope you can see that they are being met with action, because that's exactly what we are doing right now. We're moving now into this step-by-step process for this 2-track filing system that Ian's spoken about, in an effort to bring these funds home. Because when we bring those funds home, we can then start focusing on what really matters, which is the freedom plan. So great questions today, great engagement in the chat. So thank you guys for coming on board live with us as well. If you're not live and you're watching this as a recording, then I hope you've enjoyed, and I hope we've answered your question that was in there. Final thoughts before we kind of move on, Ian?
Well, my final thoughts are that we're trying very hard to put information over to people in our membership, and this is what these interviews are about and what the webinars are about. And but I think the big game changer is very shortly going to be launched, which is the Ian Clifford avatar, which you'll be able to ask questions about anything that I talk about any time of the day or night. And I think that's the game changer for a lot of people. And what I really want is to expand this information out. And I've recently announced on the Telegram channel that we're going to be offering a rewards scheme for those who share the avatar. So if you want to get £100 of credit in your digital wallet for sharing the Ian Clifford avatar with people that credit will assist you in you'll be able to offset it, discount future protocols, or even the current protocol that you might want to do if you haven't already done the Monopoly Game Changer. This Saturday's webinar I'm doing is talking about the transition for those last year, the 2025 members who had the wages and tax transcripts. I'm then talking about how the money system works. I'm then talking about the Monopoly Game Changer, what you can do. And if you've got some credits in your digital wallet to offset against the Monopoly Game Changer or any other protocol that we launch going forward, we're going to have health protocols, energy, water, food, travel. There's going to be, new protocols being launched going forward that you'll be able to offset that credit against. So if you wanted to share it with 100 people and 100 people all engage with it it's got to be more than 10 minutes. I can't just click on it and say they've engaged. They've got to actually engage with it, and you've got to actually ask it some questions. Then you can amass quite a lot of signature, a lot of credit, which will go against the protocols that you might want to enroll in going forward. So that's how I want to spread the word. I think it will work. I think people will share the avatar. You don't have to be an advocate if you don't want to be. You can just be a member and use that link that you'll receive a link and spread the word. And if you want to become an advocate, then you can on top of your your discounts that you're going to get through the rewards scheme, you'll be able to introduce people who might want to become members, and then you can get the advocate commissions, passive income, and all the rest of it. So there's lots of opportunity to to take part and help us build the nation up to the 500,000 that is in our target. Help us do that. We're being, because of the information and because the cabal knows that we're right over the target in what we're doing. Social media, emails are being constrained, things like that. So, we want you to spread the word, basically, to people that they can't stop that. And that's what we want you to do.
And they won't stop results either. The way I look at this, Ian, is, as soon as we've brought this signature credit home, we're going to need the avatar. We really are. Because I think the floodgates are going to open at that point, and everybody's going to want to be doing signature credit recoupment back to the age of 18. And, we don't have the team to be able to have people just on calls with physical people all day, every day. So I think the avatar is going to be a welcome addition to the portfolio, using what the cabal want to entrap us with to facilitate your freedom. That's the irony of it, but I love the irony. If you do want to register for the webinar this weekend, guys, then you can do that from your platform. So you'll be able to join myself and Ian. It's I'm going to be hosting or co-hosting this weekend with Ian. Sims, unfortunately, is not very well this week, so she's having a bit of time off. So she'll be on after that. I'm going to be hosting it this weekend on the 9th. And if you want to register for that, you can simply go to roswebinars.is and register there. Or if you're already a member, you can go straight to your members platform and you'll be able to register from your members area. And I look forward to seeing you there, as does Ian, I'm sure, 10 a.m. sharp, Saturday morning on the 9th.
And also 10 a.m. in the country you're in. So it's not just 10 a.m. today. We are making the webinar available at 10 a.m. in all the other countries that we're, where we have membership. So
that's amazing. So while we appreciate everybody coming on live from Thailand and from Canada and from Australia and from New Zealand, you don't have to get up at stupid o'clock to do that anymore. You can get up at 10 o'clock at your time.
You can get up at 10 o'clock a.m. in the UK if you want, or you can wait for the webinar to be made available to you at your given time, your own time that you want to watch it. So that's what we're doing. A lot of people do get up early in the morning and middle of the night and all those, but that's not necessary going forward unless that's something you want to do.
Yeah, we can't stop you if you want to do that, and we'd love to see you on there live if you can. So guys, we'll wrap it up now. Hope you've enjoyed today's Q&A. Looking forward to the next one. We'll obviously be doing a Q&A on this Saturday's webinar. Moving forward, early part of next week, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, we'll do the same again. And we'll keep rolling them out to give you clarity on your questions, and just help you guys to move forward. So have a great day, and we will see you on the next one. Bye for now.